This is a short tip video meant for intermediate level players, I'd say. People who can build a base pretty well. They know a form and they can build it pretty consistently, but maybe have trouble extending on top, or maybe their chains break a lot. So the idea is that you don't want to connect too many of the same color Puyo in a certain spot, and that's going to be on with the Puyo on the top of the base. So in this base, it'd be these greens, these blues, and these yellows. You don't want to connect the same color really, and especially not if it's three of the same color connected on top. Because if you do that, first of all, it makes it hard to use the area on the outside or around it, because when you put something there, if it's attached to the same color, it's going to break it. So, um, actually, it's probably best if you're actually playing a match, you might want to just break it and then replace it, because it's that much harder to build when it's there. But if you do that, it slows you down a little, so it's not as good. But if you try to work around it, let's say you happen to get a whole bunch of blues perfectly like this, and you work around it. Well, if you happen to have extra green laying around somewhere like here, it's still going to break because it's three of the same color and that fourth one's going to connect. And if you drew a blue-green in this shape, there's no place you can put it to start the match without having it break, so you couldn't even use it to start the match, because no matter how you put it, it's going to break. And that's all because you have three of the same color sticking out. So even if it's like this, there's a lot of the same risk of having it break with an extra color, or of making it hard to build just because it's hard to use greens. And then that goes for the other Puyo on top as well. So if you had three blues like this, it makes it tough to use the area around here, and it makes it easy to break your chain if you have a blue floating around somewhere up here. So when you're building, you want to try to avoid putting extra of the same color on top. Try to make sure it's just a different color. And especially if it's three. Like if it's just two, there's still some of the same problems, but it's not as bad. But if it's three, it just becomes really easy to break and really hard to build. So if I look at the same thing in some other bases, um, that would be like three blues right here. That's going to be really likely to break and make it tougher to build around it. And in some ways, like three reds right here, although you have ways to like extend like this. And then there could be other ways of putting three blues together like this. This would also be at risk of breaking if you just have a blue right here or something like that. It's going to break. And one way to make it not so bad is if you just know that's a risk of breaking, then you can know to avoid putting the blue there or putting a blue anywhere up here. So it still makes it hard to build. But if you're aware of it, you can play around it or use it to your advantage as like a surprise attack if you know it's going to happen and your opponent doesn't. So it's not necessarily like can't do it at all, but it does make it harder to build a chain, and it makes a chain more likely to break. In stairs, that would be these colors. You don't want to connect three of these, because that just makes it hard to build and makes the chain likely to break. And some forms do naturally have like two of the same color on top, like this one, and that's not a bad thing, especially because it's flat. And sometimes on the edges, it's generally not bad to have three of the same color on top, because it's not cutting off anything on the outside, and there's not too many places where it might break. It can still break here, and that can be a problem if you had a big tail like this or something, and then somehow had more of a tail that you were going for. Then it can be a problem. But if it's on the outside, it's not too bad either. And then when you're actually playing, One way you could use it to help you out is if you have like a double blue coming and then a single blue coming. Since you know you need another blue here, it might just be a natural instinct to just slam the double blue there first. But then you're going to have that problem of three of the same color connected, and your chain's going to be likely to break, and it's going to be harder to build. Because if you try to like use a blue red on this side, even if you had two blues and a red, when you try to start the chain with the blues, the chain's going to break and not connect all the way. So if you only had two blues, then this would work by doing like this and putting an extra color here. And so in that example, you would probably want to put the double blue to the side and then put a single blue here, and then that makes your chain a lot more stable and it makes it easier to build. For an extreme example, if you had something like this, it's just so hard to work with because if you have a blue here, it's going to break. If you have a yellow here, it's going to break. If you have a red here, it's going to break. If you draw a green attached to a piece, you can't put it anywhere over here because it'll break this. You can't put a blue here or yellow here or red here. So there's like so many conditions you have to watch out for, and the chain is really unstable. One other thing is if you already have the outside part completed, like if you had it like this, then it's not too bad to put an extra color here because this part's already completed, so you're not cutting it off. But still, you would probably want to try to avoid putting three of the same color anyway because it still has those problems of being likely to break. So to just show an example, I'll play this and random thing. So if I'm trying to extend on top of the transition over here, I can't use this piece really because it's attached to a blue and there's nowhere I can put it that really works, so I have to throw that to the side. This is the same color, so I have to throw that to the side. Now I need yellow specifically, but I can make it work. And I can't like put this here, so I can put it here. So I made it work, but there are pieces that were hard to use because they're attached to blue, so they don't work. So this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't really work. I could find a way to make it work, but it's tough, so I probably would wait for a different piece. This doesn't work, this doesn't work. Yeah, this works. So there. But as you can see, it can be really difficult just because those extra blues are connected there. And if it wasn't blues, it'd be a lot easier. So if I just had nothing there and I tried to do the same thing, now I can do this and there. I can do this because now there's not any blues blocking the area. I can use blues if I want, so that works. I can do this. You can see it's a lot easier to just put whatever I get right over here and it works out. But in that other case where there are extra blues sticking out, it was so difficult to find the right color that it was like I had to throw so many pieces away and I couldn't really do much with them, or it was a struggle to do anything useful with them. And again, if you're actually playing, sometimes you would probably just clear it just to make it easier on yourself and then build again from there. So like that's probably what I do here too. But anyway, that's the idea. You don't want to connect too many of the same color on the top of your base because it makes everything hard to work with and easy to break.